my name is Colleen Bazinski. I'm the team leader of Keller Williams Preferred Realty right here in Orland Park, Illinois, and we have branches all over the Chicagoland area. So we serve the whole Chicago metropolitan area. Pretty fun, huh? So what I'm going to share with you today is the value of being on a team. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of the models that are in the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book, which was written by Gary Keller, and some of the research that was done by Gary and his team at Baylor University on building teams and building real estate businesses and what it takes to do that. Okay? So first we're going to talk a little bit about a solo agent. So if I was a solo agent and I wanted to net $100,000, how much GCI do you think you would need to do? GCI stands for what? Gross commission income. So that's the check that comes from the title company before you've paid your split to your broker, before you've paid your expenses.
25 at an average of 5,000 is 125. So to net, it would be, to get 100, 25%.
How did you come up with that number?
I just did the average 5,000 commission.
So 125 GCI would actually not net you $100,000 because you have a couple of things. The first one is called operating expenses. Any idea what's involved in your operating expenses? What's included?
Marketing. Your MLS fee.
MLS fees. Marketing, someone said. What else? What does it cost to run a business? Office expenses. Travel for training, right? So education, coaching, training classes. What else? When you generate leads, where do your leads come from?
Advertising.
So we have marketing. What other ways do you get leads? When you cold call, do you just use your cell phone or do you have a service that you use? So do you have a dialer? What else?
Service that gets you.
A FSBO and expired service. Do you have a CRM? You pay for some online advertising, right? Pay-per-click, Facebook. What else? Do you do any mailers? Any videos? Postage? Even just to send a handwritten note after you've talked to someone, right?
And the cost of the
Thank you notes. What else?
Closing gifts.
Closing gifts. So before you can get to the closing to give a gift, once you've generated the lead, are there expenses that go with servicing that lead? So what kind of expenses go into servicing your clients?
Signs.
Signs.
Boxes.
Lock boxes. Do you take your pictures with your iPhone or do you use professional photography? Yeah. Photos.
Accounting.
Business cards. Accounting for keeping track of your money, right? Taxes, so you had MLS fees, board dues, license fees. Because when you're branding yourself as a team, is there some additional licensing that you need to do? Even if you're a solo agent, you want to brand under a marketing name. It's not just your regular license fee. What else? Yeah, so I would add office, desk, some technology, right? Computers, office phones, paper. So paper, copies. So would we agree that there's a lot of other expenses other than just your split that you pay to the company? Are there probably some things that we left out? So in the MREA research, Gary Keller says that your expenses are going to be about 29.2 is the exact number. I like to round. Is it right if we use round numbers and say 30%? Your expenses are going to be about 30% of your total GCI. And your cost of sales, what's included in cost of sales? Yeah, so this is your split that you pay to any broker or to your brokerage and to any brokers that work on your team. So your buyer's agents or your listing specialists, right? What about administrative? If you have a part-time administrative assistant to do some of this for you, does that fall in cost of sales or operating expenses?
Operating.
Yeah, it's part of your operating expenses, so we should add that here to admin salaries. That's a big one, isn't it? So this is going to be about 30%, and generally speaking, this is about 30%, which means if there's 100% of the commission, what are you left with? 40%, that's right. Now, as a solo agent, Gary says that your operating expenses are going to still be about 30%, but because in Keller Williams we cap, your cost of sales is going to be a little bit lower because we cap at, what's our number? That's our cost of sales. So we're actually going to make a little bit more than 40%. Our net income is going to be closer to 55%. So if I want to net $100,000, what does my GCI need to be? So to net $100,000, I need to have a GCI of at least $180,000 because I'm going to have all my expenses and my cost of sales. So if we're to take that $180,000 in GCI and figure out how many units that is, $180,000.
36.
Are you using an average commission of $5,000? Stephanie's saying it's an average commission of $5,000 total on a $200,000 sale. So at a $200,000 sale times 2.5% equals $5,000, right? So if you want to have GCI of $180,000, you're going to take your $180,000 and you're going to divide by $5,000, which equals 36 units. 36 transactions, which is 3 a month, right? Now, in order to close those 36 transactions and make your $100,000, how many hours are you going to spend to do that? Like, how much time are you spending? Now, granted, these numbers can vary slightly because as you're brand new, it's going to take you a lot longer than once you get experience, you'll be able to get a little bit quicker. As a new buyer's agent on a team, does it take you a little bit of time to get up and running and a little bit longer to do buyer's consultations and showings than it does once you've been doing it for a while? Yeah? So Gary Keller has done some research, and on average, he's found that there's 192 different tasks that go into building a real estate team. 192 tasks per transaction. So if you go to kellerinc.com and you look under the Millionaire Real Estate Agent, under the books, and you go to the free downloads, you can actually download this list of 192 different tasks. On average, how many hours does Gary say we spend? 192 different tasks. Let's look at this. You're doing transaction coordinating, you're doing marketing, you're taking care of your office, you're going to education, you're doing training, you're setting up your dialers, you're doing your CRM, you're setting up your online ads, you're doing your mailers, you're doing your thank you notes, you're setting up your phones, technology, accounting, business cards, printing, photos, lockboxes, you're lead generating, you're going on appointments, you're doing all of that. How many hours per transaction? You divide that out, your total number of transactions.
30.
Keep going. Good job, Jackie. It's 50 hours per transaction on average. 50 hours times 36 transactions equals how many hours?
1,800.
For the year. So if we're netting $100,000, right? Net $100,000 divided by 1,800 hours. How much dollar per hour are you making? You round it up?
Yeah.
So it's $56 per hour as a solo agent, which is not a bad living, is it? Right? It's pretty good. And yet, who's taking on all the risk?
You are.
Of the marketing, of the lead gen, of the, if you have a part-time admin at that level, right? To do 36 transactions, you might have a little bit of part-time admin, right? You'd have to find and train them and hire them. You're doing all the marketing yourself. You're doing everything, right? So now let's take a look at that same exercise, and yet we're gonna look at it a little bit differently. We're gonna look at it as being part of a team. So if I want to net $100,000 as a buyer's agent on my team, how many transactions do I have to do? Well, it's going to depend on a couple of things, isn't it? First, it's going to depend on your split. So you said your average sales or commission, total GCI, is $5,000, right? Total GCI. And what's your split on average? Now we know teams have different average splits depending on if they're brand new or brand new to the team, or sometimes when they graduate, if they're a head buyer's agent, they have different responsibilities. On average, what percentage? So 30%. So times 30% is what? So if I want to net $100,000 divided by 1,500, 67 closing. Now we said there were 192 different tasks, right? At 50 hours per closing. As a buyer's agent on a high functioning team, and what do I mean by high functioning? Because you probably see lots of different teams around the office, around the market center, around different companies, right? Are there lots of different teams out there that are all structured differently? Some pay more, some pay less, some provide value, some maybe don't provide value, right? On a high functioning team, what do I mean when I say high functioning? You have admin support, that's right. In the Millionaire Real Estate Agent, Gary talks about having a minimum of 2 administrative professionals before we add a buyer's agent to a team. So does that team have full-time admin support? What other things? What else is high functioning?
You have an ISA department.
ISAs, what else?
He's paying for all the other stuff we just listed.
Company paid resources, marketing. How about leadership and coaching? Would you agree that there's value to that as well? If you don't know what to say on an appointment, does it matter how many leads you get? I could give you 1,000 leads all day long. If you don't know what to say on the appointment because you haven't had any coaching or leadership, are you going to be able to close them? Maybe a few, not very many, right? What other things make up a high functioning team? How about systems? You guys have some systems in place? Yeah. Accountability. So your leads don't fall through the cracks, right? See, accountability is not just to check in on you and see what you're doing. It's not punitive. Accountability actually helps you make more money from the business that you're already doing and the activities you're doing. Isn't that cool? Yeah. So a high functioning team has all these things in place. So Gary says, when you have all those things in place, instead of spending 50 hours of this 192 tasks, because you're not doing all 192, some of these are leveraged, right? How many hours on average per transaction are you spending as a buyer's agent? Yeah, you're right. It's spot on. It's 10. So it's 10 hours per closing. So at 67 closings times 10 hours per closing, how many hours is that per year? 670.
And our math is off a bit because our average is 230. We base this at 200. So for what it's worth.
Yeah, so that number actually will go up.
57 is actually 58.
Okay, so we can redo this whole exercise at your average sale price. If your average sale price is higher, guess what? You get to make more. How fun is that?
Because our goal is 250, which then even changes it more. So.
Yeah. So let's just look at this just for argument's sake here. 670. So now I'm going to take my $100,000, same $100,000 I'm going to make for the year, and I'm going to divide it by 670. What's the number?
150.
$150 per hour. I'm no genius, and yet I think $150 an hour is a heck of a lot better than $56 an hour. What do you think? And what do you not have? Any of this risk. What else do you have? Leadership, coaching, resources. How about camaraderie? Is there a value in being part of a team and having camaraderie? Vacations, peace of mind, teamwork, vacations. So when you see these numbers, what are you thinking? Because I really would love to hear from you guys on what kind of thoughts are running through your head. Did you expect it to be such a significant difference? See, because when we look at splits instead of looking at dollar per hour, we're actually robbing ourselves of a whole heck of a lot of money and quality of life. Yeah, opportunity is a great one. Opportunity to grow within the organization.
I think you also shorten your learning curve.
Oh yeah, you can get there faster. We said that at the beginning, right? That it takes a little time to get up and running. What are the odds as a solo agent, brand new, that you're going to do 36 units on 180,000 in GCI your first year?
Slim to none.
Yeah, slim to none, right? And you have all the risk if you're a solo agent. I think that's the biggest thing that people overlook.
Can you talk about that a little bit? What do you mean by risk?
So who's going to make sure you're up and in the office every day? Who's holding you accountable? If you're a solo agent. If it's to be, it's up to me, right? Who's got to write those checks for the marketing? Because would you agree that in order to do 180,000 in GCI, you're still going to have to do some marketing as a solo agent? Who's ordering the photography and the sign and the lockbox and paying for it without ever knowing if that listing's going to sell? If you're going to hire a transaction coordinator or an executive assistant part-time to help you with that. Because at 180,000 in GCI, you probably have a part-time assistant, right? Right at that 36 unit mark is usually where someone will hire, somewhere between 24 and 48 units is where they're going to have part-time help. So who's going to cover that salary? Because if they work the hours and they're on a paycheck, don't you still owe that money whether or not you get a commission or not? Yeah. What are some of the other things that we included as expenses? So we said you have to pay for the marketing, office expenses. If you have an office space, right, you pay a little bit more for that office space. Education, coaching. Are you going to have to hire your own coach instead of having the team coach you? Is there leaders within your organization and your team that are coaching you and training you on a regular basis? I mean, I know you've got incredible coaches within your organization. A dialer, who's paying for your dialer? You're paying for all this up front before you ever know if you have a closing. Is that a lot of risk? So is the team risking on you by paying for all these and providing this up front? And what are they asking for in return? Your commitment, exactly. Your commitment to do the daily activities. You do the daily activities and you show up and you do what it takes and you follow the coaching and you are open-minded and learning-based. You're going to have success. They're willing to bet on you. Yet, as a solo agent, you're taking all this risk yourself. Closing gifts, usually, sometimes you have like Cutco or some of those interesting you have to order those in bulk ahead of time, right? You don't just get to buy that after the closing. Business cards, printing, computers, all of your technology, your CRM. To have a lead generating CRM, how much does that cost? At the bare minimum, it's probably $1,000 and it goes on up from there a month. And yet you can net the same and make more dollar per hour on a team. Every time I do this presentation in front of a group of realtors, a bunch of them say, hey, I want to join a team. Can you see why? Yeah. And yet, not every team is going to want to take everyone, right? If you're selected, it probably means that you were selected for a reason, that you were put through a screening process because the rest of the team sees you as talented and you have an opportunity to perform with them.
Kelly, you just came from being a solo agent.
I did, and I'm blown away by how awesome it is to be on the team.
Yeah. So I think one of the things we need to be really conscious of as team members is to not focus on splits and focus on value. What am I making dollar per hour? What am I not taking on the risk and responsibility? Like if I was a single mom, I sure as heck wouldn't want to take on all that risk on my own. I would want the stability and support that goes with this. Any other questions? Ahas? I'd like to hear maybe 2 ahas or 3 ahas.
I was a solo agent at Beard Warner, and I actually left there because they had no teams, and I desperately wanted all of the above, coaching and accountability and being around people that have the same goals, and it's awesome.
How has it stretched your mindset and changed your thinking?
Well, at first I was thinking, gosh, I hope I make it through the first year. But now I'm thinking I can't wait to see what happens next year.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. See, you've moved to another level in just that short period of time, just by being open to that coaching and that that level of thinking. That was one. We need two more.
I can work fewer hours, make more money.
Well, isn't it come down to quality of life? Isn't that why some people get into this business? And it doesn't necessarily mean that you don't invest those hours somewhere else then. Could you invest it in building another division in your team? Could you invest it in becoming a leader within the team? Could you invest it in other business opportunities?
You know what else struck me with this exercise is that how many homes does the average agent sell in Chicagoland?
14.
No, less than that.
2, isn't it?
It's 8.
We got the numbers from John Davis actually the other day, and it was 4. 4 per year.
Yeah, so the average agent goes on their own thinking they're going to sell 36, and they're selling 4.
Yeah, because
They're way above average. They're
That's
selling
average.
average, 4 per agent. If you take all the homes sold and divide it by all the agents, it's 4 per agent. Keller Williams average is double that. Some of them think they are. They're like, oh, I made $100,000. They probably grossed $100,000. They didn't net $100,000. See, because they don't understand business. That's the other benefit of being part of a team that gets business. They're teaching you these things, these ideas and concepts that some agents are just looking for their next sale, right? Because they're like, oh, I made $100,000. Well, was that gross or was that net? Whereas a buyer's agent on a team, right? That's net. You're netting $100,000, making $150 an hour. Finished on time.
Thank you.
My pleasure.